Hare Krishna. I would like to express my gratitude to His Grace Gopal Bhatta Prabhu and the GBC SPT for kindly offering me this opportunity of service, purification, and absorption in Krishna Lila in this wonderful Kartik month. And I would like to welcome all the online viewers and listeners. Today we're discussing the 11th chapter of the 10th Canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Childhood Pastimes of Krishna. It is a very wonderful and eventful chapter, so I can only scratch the surface in the allotted time. But Sanatana Goswami addresses the Bhagavatam saying, Paramananda Pathaya Prema Varshaksharaya Te. By reading you, one attains Parama Ananda, transcendental bliss. For your syllables, Akshara, rain pure love of God, Prema Varshi, upon the reader. So wherever we touch this glorious scripture, the result is unimaginable. Let us invoke the mercy of the Lord and His devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Miritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakaptarubhyascha kipasindibhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Chapter 9 and 10 of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam describe the celebrated Damodar Lila, the pastime we daily meditate on in this month. It is the emblem of Raja Bhakti, love of God with a special power, a power which makes the supreme absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, subservient. In the introductory class to this Kartik series, His Holiness Srila Shiva Ramaswamy Maharaj wonderfully explained, referring to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the Paribhasha Sutra of specifically the 10th canto. Harim Samanyatatmajam, Mother Yashoda considering Lord Krishna her ordinary son. The special magic of the Vraja pastimes is that it is Krishna's Nara Lila, or human play. In the 10th canto, we are invited into the realm of the type of love that supersedes anything outside of Vrindavan. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is loved and served not for what He is, but who He is. The heart-churning pastime of Sri Damodar ends in the 11th chapter. And we will observe a shift in the focus of the text from Vatsāsura to Sakyarati, from parental love to love of God in friendship. This chapter contains 59 verses spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, who sometimes quotes the words of the Brijbasis. We learn what happened directly after the Yamala Arjuna trees fell. And then we see that Krishna is Britya Vashyata, he is controlled by his loving servants. We hear the sweet story of the fruit vendor, how little Krishna and Balaram play and their mothers reveal their wonderful affection, how the inhabitants of Gokula moved to Vrindavan, and how Krishna killed Vatsāsura and then Bakāsura, and there are a few concluding verses. Krishna, every day, in every moment, displayed wonderful incidents to increase the parental affection of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi, and the love of all the Brijbasis, who thus felt both surprise and joy. So let us enter. The chapter starts with the scene of the fallen Yamala Arjuna trees, Krishna bound to the mortar, his friends being there, and the cowherd men standing around and being bewildered about what may have happened. Srila Prabhupada says that they thought that by chance Krishna had been saved by God so that nothing had happened to him. In text 5 we read, and this is projected so you can also see, Nateta duktam jagrihur naggateti tasyatat balasyot patanam tarvo kechit sandigda chetasaha. Because of intense paternal affection, the cowherd man, headed by Nanda, could not believe that Krishna could have uprooted the trees in such a wonderful way. Therefore, they could not put their faith in the words of the boys. Tad uktam, what was said by them, the little boys, te na jagrihur, they did not accept, from the root grah. When Nanda Maharaj and the village elders arrived to the scene, the little boys were telling them what happened, but they couldn't believe their words. And balasya utpatanam tarvo. How could a bala, a little boy, uproot utpatana, huge trees, tarvo? The dual genitive case of taru, as in kalpa taru, desire-fulfilling trees. We're in Vraja. As I said, Krishna is performing his Nara Lila, and his associates are the highest emblems of love of God. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami reveals Krishna's thoughts. Aishvarya Jnaneti Sava Jagat Mishrita Aishvarya Shitila Preme Nahimora Prita. He says, all the universe is filled with the conception of my majesty, but love, weakened by that sense of majesty, does not satisfy me. The specialty of the love of the Brijbasis is that they don't love God for his godhood, but for who he is as a person. Neither are they even aware of his godhood. In this pastime, he is seen as a 3-year-old little boy, and the Gopas cannot imagine a toddler tied to a mortar doing something extraordinary like uprooting huge trees. Nanda Maharaj moved closer to his son. This was his first entrance onto the stage of Damodar Lila. He had heard the village women call his son Damodar, and now he was seeing for himself his belly-tied son. Love tied Krishna up. Only similar love can untie him. Sridham, other boys, even Balaram tried to untie him, but they couldn't. Nanda Maharaj unties Krishna. Something we can contemplate on here is how Lord Damodar liberated the Yamala Arjuna trees while bound, and then Nanda Maharaj untied him. Our acharyas explain that no matter how entangled we are, we must preach. We must help others bound by the modes of nature by giving them Krishna consciousness. If a conditioned soul does so, by Krishna's mercy, someone will liberate him or her as well. Nanda Maharaj's family moved to Gokula to escape Kamsa's servants, specifically Keshi, but they have been attacked by other demons there, Putana, Trinavarta, and Shakata, and now this mysteriously inauspicious event. They started considering relocating to a place that is safer for Krishna and the other children. This event, the falling of the Yamala Arjuna trees, was the seed of a later discussion that would result in relocating to Vrindavan forest. The next section of the chapter are verses 7 to 9. In 7 we read how the gopis say, "If you dance, my dear Krishna, then I shall give you half a sweetmeat." By saying these words or by clapping their hands, all the gopis encouraged Krishna in different ways. At such times, although he was the supremely powerful personality of Godhead, he would smile and dance according to their desire, as if he were a wooden doll in their hands. Sometimes he would sing very loudly at their bidding. In this way, Krishna came completely under the control of the gopis. Krishna is actually like a puppet in the hands of those who have pure love for him in the mood of the Brijbasis. This is further demonstrated in verses 8 and 9. Whatever Krishna is told, he does. Verse 8 says, sometimes they would order him to bring a wooden plank, wooden shoes, or a wooden measuring pot. And Krishna, when thus ordered by the mothers, would try to bring them. And in verse 9, To pure devotees throughout the world who could understand his activities, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, exhibited how much he can be subdued by his devotees, his servants. In this way, he increased the pleasure of the Brijabasis by his childhood activities. Shukadeva Goswami uses the term Britya Vashyatam. Britya means servant. Krishna is subjecting himself under his servants. And Vashyata also means obedience. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya refers to Krishna's words, Bhakta ama preme bhandiyache. The love of my devotee can tie me up. How wonderful. While doing so, he pleases his devotees. Harsham means pleasure, and also Krishna sends a message. In Damodarashtaka, he explains which servants have power over him. As we sing, Itidrik svalilabhi rananda kunde svagosham nimajjantam akyapayantam tadiyeshitagyeshu bhaktarjitatvam. Through his childhood pastimes, Krishna immerses nimajjantam, his own people, svagosham, in pools of ecstasy, ananda kunde, and so reveals akyapayantam to devotees who worship him in majesty, tadiyeshitagyeshu, who are aware of his supremacy, that his heart can only be conquered by devotion steeped in spontaneous love, bhaktarjitatvam. And this unique love, this spontaneous devotion, is the gift of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then in 2 verses, we hear of another sweet pastime. One day, a fruit vendor came to Nanda Maharaj's house, and Krishna gathered some grains with his little hands. He saw his parents do that, and went to the vendor to exchange the grains for fruit. On the way, almost all the grains fell from his hands, only 1 or 2 remaining. But the fruit vendor, enchanted by his beauty, out of full affection, accepted these few grains in exchange for as much fruit as Krishna could take. As soon as she did this, her basket became filled with gold and jewels. In verse 10, we see the phrase Sarva Phala Prada, the Supreme Personality of Godhead who can give all kinds of fruits to everyone. He becomes Phala Arti, who wants fruits. Krishna wants to experience the loving exchange of Dadati Pratigrinati. In Krishna book, commenting on this pastime, Srila Prabhupada says that if someone gives something to the Lord, he is not the loser. He is the gainer by 1,000,000 times. Srila Prabhupada encourages us to dedicate our lives to Krishna. As the representative of the most benevolent Lord, he himself was a giver. He did not say this to take something from us. Rather, he knew that whatever we offer to the Lord will benefit us 1,000,000 times. Giving our time, wealth, abilities, intelligence, thoughts to Krishna is an opportunity for us. Everything we have is his anyway. He owns everything, and everything belongs to him. These beautiful verses in the Bhagavatam help us see the wonderful, merciful nature of Krishna and inspire us to give him all that we have, out of love, without any expectation. In verses 12 to 20, we read about the boys, little Krishna and Balaram, playing, and my mother Yashoda calling them home, and bathing and dressing and feeding them, and revealing her wonderful affection. And then there is verse 20. It says, Itam Yashoda tamashesha shekharam matvasutam snehani bathadir nipa. Here Shukadeva Goswami says, My dear Maharaj Parikshit, because of intense love and affection, Mother Yashoda, Krishna's mother, considered Krishna, who was at the peak of all opulences, to be her own son. Verse 20 repeats the Paribhasha Sutra of the 10th canto with the words Matva Sutam Sneha Nibathadir. Because of intense spirit of love, Mother Yashoda considered Krishna her son. Krishna is Damodar, tied by his mother around his belly, but Mother Yashoda's thoughts, mind, are also Nibatha, tied to Krishna due to her sneha, love, and thus Matva Sutam. She thinks Krishna as her son. Then in verse 21 to 36, we read how the most mature and experienced Gopas discuss the dangers of living in Gokula and decide to move to Vrindavan. They've seen too much trouble in Gokula, Putana, Shakata, Trinavarta falling of the 2 trees. So they decided to move immediately. So while Krishna was born in Gokula, he moved to Vrindavan when he was 3 years and 4 months old. And we read in verse 36, Vrindavanam Govardhanam Yamuna Purinani cha Vikshyasi Duttama Priti Rama Madhavayor Nripa. O King Parikshit, when Rama and Krishna saw Vrindavan, Govardhan, and the banks of the river Yamuna, they both enjoyed great pleasure. As they are traveling on their bullock carts, little Krishna and Balaram are seeing their dearest pastime places, the forest of Vrindavan, Govardhan Hill, and the banks of the Yamuna. This is a very famous verse. Sanatana Goswami quotes it in his commentary to Srimad Bhagavatam, it is Mangalacharana, and Jiva Goswami also quotes it in his Gopal Champu. Vrindavan forest is where Krishna will tend the cows, and also the place of the Rasa Lila. Govardhan is known as the crest jewel of Raja, as Vrindavana Ankaya, Vrindavan's tilak mark, Goloka Mauline, the crown of Goloka, Ashesha Klesha Nasha, the destroyer of unlimited sufferings, and Paramananda Dain, the giver of the highest bliss. And the river Yamuna, embracing Vrindavan, is the purest of all transcendental rivers. Lord Chaitanya calls her Drava Brahma Gatri, which means that all of Yamuna's limbs or parts, Gatri, are Drava, molten or liquefied spiritual substance, Brahma. And he also says, Oghanam Lavitri, Yamuna Devi can vanquish all our offenses and the sinful reactions incurred in life. She's so powerful that by bathing in, touching, seeing, or smelling the Yamuna, or even by thinking of performing any of these activities, she frees us from suffering and opens the gateway to auspiciousness and offers love of God. Lord Krishna ordered all 3 of them to descend to earth and help his pastimes, as their presence was Srimati Radharani's condition to join him in his venture to this world. And now here he is enjoying their sight. He is experiencing Uttama Priti, the highest joy, more so than he did in Gokula. After the Brijbasis settle down in Vrindavan, we hear of Krishna killing Vatsāsura. In verse 37, we read, Evam vrachoka sampritim yachanto bala cheshtitai karavakyai svakalina vatsapalo babuvatu. Srila Prabhupada translated saying, in this way, Krishna and Balaram, acting like small boys, are talking in half-broken language, gave transcendental pleasure to all the inhabitants of Braja. In due course of time, they became old enough to take care of the calves. Krishna displays the 3 ages preceding adulthood, childhood, Kaumara, boyhood, Pauganda, and youth, Kaishor, and each lasts 5 years. To fully understand Krishna's pastimes, our acharyas have commented on Krishna's age quite a lot. Sanatana Goswami says that here, Svakalina refers to a specific age of Krishna. It means, according to Sanatana Goswami, Chatur Varsha Vayah Prakatye. There was the manifestation, Prakatya, of 4 years, Chatur Varsha, of age, Vaya. So when Krishna was 4, he started to take care of the calves. We see how very young children are given responsibility. Their play is combined with being useful in the family and community, which is an important principle. That said, Jiva Goswami explains that actually Krishna was growing at the rate of twice his age. So when he was 4, he had the maturity of a boy of 7 or 8. It took some convincing by Nanda Maharaj of Yashoda Devi to let Krishna go out with the calves. But eventually she agreed. She wanted her son to become a useful member of their cowherd community. Connected to this verse, Jiva Goswami comments on the phrase Kalavakyai. He says it means Manohara Bhashitai, speech which enchants the mind. In the Madhurashtaka, we sing Vachanam Madhuram Charitam Madhuram Madhuradipatera Kilam Madhuram. Vachanam Madhuram, that his words are sweet and his activities are sweet. Vrindavan is the place of Madhurya Lila, pastimes of sweetness, while Vaikuntha is the place of Aishwarya Lila, pastimes of opulence. Krishna's speech is sweet in all his ages, but it has a unique sweetness when he's a small child. In the previous verse, we saw Vikshyasi Uttama Priti. Krishna and Balaram were experiencing the highest bliss. Here we have Evram Vrajokasam Pritim Yachanto Bala Chestitai. With their childhood pastimes, Krishna and Balaram are giving bliss, Priti, to Vraja Okasam, the residents of Vraja. Just seeing them in their yellow and blue garments with tinkling ornaments, necklaces, bracelets, decorated with flowers, leaves, peacock feathers, gives bliss. All little children are considered cute and sweet and enchanting. Imagine when the source of that childless potency is manifested by its origin. How enchanting that may be. In verse 38, we read, Avidure Vrajabuva Sahagopala Darakai Charayamasa Turvatsan Nana Krida Parichadao. Not far away from the residential quarters, Krishna and Balaram, equipped with all kinds of playthings, played with other cowherd boys and began to tend the small calves. Here we see the phrase Charayam Asatur Vatsan. The two of them began to tend the small calves, and Avidure Vrajabuva. Until they are small boys, they stay nearby, Avidure. They're close to their homes. As they're bigger and more experienced, they will go further and get more freedom, get away from the parents, and do whatever they want. In this verse and the next, there is a transition from Vatsāsura, relationship in parental affection, to Sakyarati, relationship in friendship. In later chapters of the 10th canto on the Vraja pastimes, the focus will shift to Madhuryarati, conjugal relationship. Here, Gopala refers to the profession. Although they are only Vatsapala, they're only taking care of calves, but Krishna has the name Gopala even before he's big enough to tend the cows. He's called Bala Gopala. And while they do responsible work, they are still small children, and kids always take with themselves their playthings. Nana Krida Parichadao. Sanatana Goswami explains that these playthings include a flute, horn, staff, ball, lute, etc. Then we read verses 39 to 40. Kvachid vadayato venum, kshepanai kshipata kvachit, kvachit padai kinkinibi, kvachit kritrimago vishai, vishayamano nardantau, Yuyudate parasparam anukritya rutai jantums cheratu prakrito yata. And the translation. Sometimes Krishna and Balaram would play on their flutes. Sometimes they would throw ropes and stones, divides for getting fruits from the trees. Sometimes they would throw only stones. And sometimes, their ankle bells tinkling, they would play football with fruits like bale and amalaki. Sometimes they would cover themselves with blankets and imitate cows and bulls and fight with one another, roaring loudly. And sometimes they would imitate the voices of the animals. In this way, they enjoyed sporting exactly like two ordinary human children. This verse here is in the present tense. These are eternal pastimes. Kvachit is repeated 4 times, which means there is no specific time referred to. sometime. And in this verse is the first mention of the flute in the Bhagavatam. In Damodar Lila, there was no mention of the flute, neither in any Gokula pastimes. Here in Vrindavan, Krishna starts playing the flute. He's famous as Vamshi Vadana. His flute playing enchants the material and spiritual universes. In Ananda Vrindavan Champu, Kavi Karnapur writes that while Krishna's lips previously tasted only his mother's breast milk, now he relishes the soft notes of his flute. He says that all of Krishna's paraphernalia is eternally present with him, but sometimes they are unmanifest, as their presence would either conflict with devotional mellows or with the chronology of his unfolding pastimes. We see in this verse how the boys imitate sounds of animals and play prakrito yata, like yata, to ordinary human children, prakrita. As the Paribhasha Sutra stated, Harim sa ammanyata atmajam. Mother Yashoda also considered her son an ordinary boy. In verse 41 we read, Kadachit yamuna tire Vatsāsura svakai Vayasya Krishna balayor Jikhamsur daitya agamat. One day, while Rama and Krishna, along with their playmates, were tending the calves on the bank of the river Yamuna, another demon arrived there, desiring to kill them. Here we are, Yamuna Tire, on the bank of the Yamuna. The boys are at Vatsāsura, tending calves. Sanatana Goswami says that they are with Svaka, their own companions. These companions are who give happiness to them, or who are the forms of happiness, being very dear to them. And Jikhamsur daitya agamat, a demon arrived desiring to kill Krishna and Balaram. Agamat is past tense. While previously play with the boys and tending calves were spoken about in present tense, killing of demons is only a pastime in the material world, and Shukadeva Goswami uses past tense here. Earlier, when entering Vrindavan on their bullock carts, Krishna and Balaram were referred to as Rama Madhava. These names expressed their bliss. Here they are called Krishna Bala, which expresses their strength, their power. And the word Daitya is used, indicating that the demon is a descendant of deity. Sometimes demigods are cursed to become demons, but here is an actual descendant of deity. In the 4th chapter of Garga Samhita, Narada tells the story of Vatsāsura to King Bahulashva. Garga Samhita states that he came on Kamsa's order, Kamsa Pranoditam. He was also sent by Kamsa like Putana, Shakata, and Trinavarta, as Kamsa has been wanting Krishna dead, fearing for his own life. In verse 42 we read, Tam Vatsarupinam Vikshya Vatsayuta Gatam Hari Darshayan Baladevaya Shanai Mugda Ivasadat. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead saw that the demon had assumed the form of a calf and entered among the groups of other calves, he pointed out to Baladev, Here is another demon. Then he very slowly approached the demon as if he did not understand the demon's intentions. Tam Vatsarupinam Vikshya, seeing Vikshya, that demon Tam, in the form of a calf, Vatsarupinam, and Vatsyayuta Gatam, as he entered Gatam, the group Yuta of calves, Vatsa. Hari is the name used by Shukadeva Goswami, which means to take away. Sanatana Goswami explains that this name is used because Krishna performs Dushtanam Prana Harana. He takes away the life of a demon. And also Shishtanam Manoharana. Of others, he enchants their minds. He steals their minds, their thoughts. He's also performing Dukhaharana, by killing Vatsāsura and thus liberating him from his misery. Demons who are killed by Krishna are not ordinary. Bahulashva asked Narada, how was Vatsāsura qualified to be touched by the lotus hands of the Supreme Lord? So in answer, Narada Muni spoke about the previous life of Vatsāsura. Vatsāsura was a great demon called Pramila, the son of Muru. He once entered Vasishta Muni's ashram and saw his Kamadenu, Nandini. Kamadenus are wish-fulfilling cows. They can give you whatever you ask for. Pramila wanted this cow from himself, so he disguised himself as a Brahman and asked for the cow. It's general. Brahmins beg alms and are offered what they ask for. But both Vasishta Muni and Nandini detected his deception, for which Nandini cursed him. He said, Go Vatsa Bhavadurmate. O wicked-hearted one, now you become a calf. Later in the 10th canto, in chapter 64, we read the story of King Nriga, and there Krishna says, Naham hala halam manye visham yasya pratikriya brahmasvam hi visham proktam nasya pratividir bhuvi. He says, I do not consider halahala to be real poison because it has an antidote. But a Brahman's property, when stolen, can truly be called poison, for it has no antidote in this world. There are many verses in that section about the dangers of taking something from a Brahmin. So Pramila was cursed and immediately became a calf. He begged Vasishta, Trahi, save me. And Nandini had mercy on him. She said, Dvapara Ante, at the end of the Dvapara Yuga, Vrindaranye, in the forest of Vrindavan, Go Vatseshu Gatsyapi, when you go among cows, Tada Muktir Bhavishyati, then you will attain liberation. Most of Kamsa's servants were Kamarupa Dhara, could assume any form according to their own desire. But Vatsāsura was Pramila forced into the form of a calf. He was cursed. But this form had some advantages. The cows are Krishna's favorite animals, so this way he could get close to him and could hide among all the other calves and did not stand out. As we read, Hari Darshayan Baladevaya. Krishna showed Baladev. Krishna saw Vatsāsura's intention. Krishna cannot be cheated. Love can override his all-knowing capacity, but not bad intention. Shukadev Goswami says, Mugda Iva, as if he was Mugda. It's interesting how Srila Prabhupada says in his purport that the import of the words Mugda Iva is that although Krishna knows everything, here he pretended that he did not understand why the demon had entered among the calves, and he informed Baladev by a sign. Outside of Vraja, Krishna is always Sarvagya, all-knowing, omniscient. But in Vrindavan Lila, Krishna is sometimes Sarvagya and sometimes Mugda, or both. Jiva Goswami's definition of Bhagavan in Bhakti Sandarbha includes that he is Paraspara Viruthananta Gunanidhi, the ocean of unlimited, mutually contradictory qualities. Yogamaya makes Krishna forget his own divinity and at other times reveals it. His association with his Vrindavan surrounding leads him to conclude that he is a cowherd boy. Moreover, because Yashoda's spontaneous love for him is so focused on his identity as her son, it excludes any trace of his divinity. In his dealings with Mother Yashoda, Krishna feels completely dependent on his mother, so much so that he is prone to fear her chastisement. So the omnipotent God fears his mother. He's not play acting. He's actually afraid. In verse 43 we read, Grihitva parapadabhyam sahalangula machyuta brahmaitva kapittagre brahinod gata jivitam Sakapittai mahakaya patyamanai papataha. Thereafter, Sri Krishna caught the demon by the hind legs and tail, twirled the demon's whole body very strongly until the demon was dead, and threw him into the top of a kapita tree, which then fell down along with the body of the demon, who had assumed a great form. No calf is ever harmed by cowherd boys, but Krishna is not sentimental. He reciprocates as anyone behaves toward him. Yeyata, tamsata. Vatsāsura wanted to kill Krishna, Krishna killed him. As a human being, Krishna expands his pleasure potency and creates thrilling transcendental pastimes full of suspense and dynamic action. Thus, he's entertaining the Brijbasis and he's increasing their attachment and love for him. After the demon was killed by twirling, he died of dizziness. He was also thrown on a tree full of fruits, and thus the fruits fell for the pleasure of the boys. His dead body was used to serve the Gopas. With one action, Krishna always accomplishes many purposes. Vatsāsura attained a huge form, his original form. And Garga Samhita says that, purified of his sinful desires, Vatsāsura's soul entered Krishna's body. The Bhagavatam gives no detail in this regard. And then there is verse 44. Tam vikshya vismita bala shashamshu sadhu sadviti devascha parisantushta babhuvu pushpavarshina. Upon seeing the dead body of the demon, all the cowherd boys exclaimed, "Well done, Krishna, very good, thank you, sadhu, sadhu." In the upper planetary system, all the demigods were pleased, parisatushta, and therefore they showered flowers, pushpavarshina, on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To vatsapalakau bhutva sarvalokaikapalakau sapratarasho go vatsamsh charayanto vicheratu. After killing of the demon, Krishna and Balaram finished their breakfast in the morning, and while continuing to take care of the calves, they wandered here and there. Krishna and Balaram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who maintained the entire creation, now took charge of the calves as if cowherd boys. To vatsapalakau bhutva sarvalokaika palakau. Sarva means the entire loka, entire creation. They were the ekapalako. They maintained the entire creation. Now took charge of the calves as if cowherd boys, vatsapalako. So they were sarvalokaika palako, and now they are vatsapalako. And after the killing, they just finished their breakfast. We had some fun, now let's eat. Prabhupada comments that killing demons was routine forward for Krishna and Balaram. 1, the demons came often, and 2, it was no effort for them. In his Chaitanya Shikshamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that the demons killed during the Vrindavan Lila, the demons Krishna killed, represent all the main anarthas we come across. He says that one cannot enter Braja Bhakti until all these demons have been killed within one's heart. Although Vatsāsura was killed 5,000 years ago, his mentality is still present in the world and can enter our hearts and cause havoc there. He represents the childish mentality that one can be easily influenced because of bad association. While we are taught that a devotee should be very simple, even childlike, but not childish, a child is sometimes cheated by rogues by offering some chocolates or sweets. Many children are kidnapped by this method. I remember how my mother used to warn me not to accept sweets from strangers. We also thus foolishly get attracted to materialistic enjoyment because of bad association. One must have discrimination. This combination, childlike simplicity and discrimination, make a devotee very, very pleasing to Krishna. Vatsāsura was also a cheater. He came as an innocent calf with an intention to kill. Sometimes he also tried to cheat others by being hypocrites. and may also cheat ourselves, thinking that our anarthas are innocent calves. We may put on a show of devotion with some material motivation. This anartha is cleansed when we hear the pastime of Krishna killing Vatsāsura. The last pastime in this chapter is Krishna killing Bakāsura, covered in 9 verses. We read how one day all the boys brought the calves to a reservoir of water, to a pond, so that both the calves and the boys can drink. In verse 47 we read, Te tatra dadrishur bala mahasattvam avastitam tatra survajra nirbhinnam gire shringam ivachyutam. Right by the reservoir, the boys saw a gigantic body resembling a mountain peak, broken and struck down by a thunderbolt. They were afraid even to see such a huge living being. Here Shukadeva Goswami paints a picture for us. By a lake, there are the boys and the calves, and they see something huge, Mahasattvam, resembling a mountain peak, Gire Shringam. The boys were afraid of what they saw, Tatrasu, from the root tras, meaning to be afraid or to tremble. Sanatana Goswami says that it can be understood in 2 ways, as the boys whose life rests in Krishna were afraid, or all the boys, including Krishna, were afraid. But Krishna's fear of demons is bhitavat, as if he was afraid. His fear of Mother Yashoda was real, but there his Yogamaya covers him. When he's dealing with demons, he's very much conscious of his power. Verse 48 says, Savai bakona mamahan asuro bakarupadrik agatya sahasa krishnam tikshnatundu grasatpali. The great body demon was named Bakāsura. He had assumed the body of a duck with a very sharp beak. Having come there, he immediately swallowed Krishna. Sanatana Goswami comments that Baka could only swallow Krishna by Krishna's will. Verse 49 says, Krishnam mahabaka grastam drishtva ramadayor baka babuvur indriyaniva vina pranam vichetasaha. When Balaram and the other boys, Drishtva, saw that Krishna had been devoured by the gigantic duck, Krishnam mahabaka grastam, they became almost unconscious, vichetasaha, like senses without life, vina pranam. Baka was huge, and in comparison, Krishna was very small. What was the effect on the boys? Srila Prabhupada says that even Lord Balaram was momentarily bewildered. Jiva Goswami explains that he was overcome by brotherly affection, and although he's just as omniscient and omnipotent as Krishna, and could have easily killed Baka, his own name is Bala Rama, he became devoid of Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti, was confounded and could not act. Verse 50 says, the translation is, Krishna, who was the father of Lord Brahma, but who was acting as the son of a cowherd man, became like fire, burning the root of the demon's throat, and the demon Bakāsura immediately disgorged him. When the demon saw that Krishna, although having been swallowed, was unharmed, he immediately attacked Krishna again with his sharp beak. In his wonderful purport, Srila Prabhupada says, although Krishna is always as soft as a lotus, within the throat of Bakāsura he created a burning sensation of being hotter than fire. Although Krishna's whole body is sweeter than sugar candy, Bakāsura tasted bitterness and therefore immediately vomited Krishna up. So nicely spoken by Prabhupada. How we experience things depends on our consciousness. Just as Krishna's body tasted bitter to Baka, Rupa Goswami explains that the holy name is bitter for one covered by ignorance. Syat Krishna nama charitadi sitapya vidya pitopa taptarasanasya narochikanu. Although it is sita, sweet, we may have no taste for it. Baka had a demoniac consciousness, and his experience of Krishna was so disturbing that he vomited. On the other hand, when one is in transcendental consciousness, one's experience of one's environment is completely different. Stavara jangama dekena deketara murti, sarvatra haya nija ishtadeva spurti. The Mahabhagavata sees Krishna, his Ishtadeva, everywhere. Verse 51 says, Tamapatantam sanigrihyatунdayor dorbyambakam kamsa sakamsa tampati pashyatsu bhareshu dadara lilaya mudavaho viranavadivokasam. When Krishna, the leader of the Vaishnavas, saw that the demon Bakāsura, the friend of Kamsa, was endeavoring to attack him, with his arms he captured the demon by 2 halves of the beak, and in the presence of all the cowherd boys, Krishna very easily bifurcated him, as a child splits a blade of virana grass. By thus killing the demon, Krishna very much pleased the denizens of heaven. Sanatana Goswami points out that Krishna is Satampati, protector of the righteous. So he had to kill Baka. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam. Krishna protects the devotees and annihilates the demons. And he makes another point. Someone may assume that Vatsāsura was easily killed by Krishna because he did not see Krishna coming. So in answer, Krishna let Baka swallow him and still could kill him. We see that as Vatsāsura, Baka was also Kamsa Saka, a friend of Kamsa's. And Jiva Goswami says that Baka was split as a blade of grass, and it is as if Kamsa was split too. Garga Samhita says, Tadam rityasya daityasya jyoti krishne samavishat. From the dead demon, a light left and entered Krishna, and thus he attained Sayujya Mukti. It appears that Baka attained the same destination as Vatsāsura. And then in verse 52, we read how the Devas showered flowers on Krishna and praised him. Krishna also delights the residents of heaven. The boys were struck with wonder as they were very respectful towards the demigods. And then when Krishna was freed from danger, the boys got back their life. Krishna is the life of the Brajavasis, their prana. Without him, they have nothing to live for. They happily embraced Krishna, collected the calves and went home, and they told everyone what happened. Jiva Goswami makes the point that after having killed Vatsāsura, either the boys did not tell anyone, thinking that no one would believe them, or they did, but Shukadeva Goswami did not mention it as he was absorbed in prema. Here, in the Bakāsura story, Shukadeva Goswami specifically says that they spoke about the past times when they got home. And then when the cowherd men and the women heard them, they were astonished and thought that the boys had returned from the mouth of death and could not take their eyes off Krishna. The story of Bakāsura is also there in Garga Samhita. As in the case of Vatsāsura, King Bahulashva also wanted to know about the past of Bakāsura. Narada explained that he was a demon named Utkala who fought with Vritrasura against Indra and defeated many demigods and stole Indra's parasol. He once went near Jajali Muni's ashram and was fishing, and Jajali Muni very much despised those who ate fish and cursed him. He said, "You eat fish like a duck, so become a duck." He did, and having lost his power and pride, he begged the sage to save him. So Jajali Muni blessed him that when Krishna will descend to earth, Utkala will attain liberation. Bakāsura represents the system of cheating religions. When one foolishly accepts a pseudo-guru, one will be cheated. Until such cheating propensities are destroyed, spiritual advancement is checked. He also represents cunning duplicity, deceptive behavior, and hypocrisy, the outward manifestation of a false lifestyle of cheating activities. The Srimad Bhagavatam starts with the words Dharma projita kaita votra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Dharma pra ujjita kaitava. The Bhagavata Purana completely rejects all religious activities which are materially motivated. Kaitava Dharma, or cheating religion. According to Vallabhacharya, Baka's upper and lower beak represent greed and unrighteousness. Bliss is delivered by greed and truth by unrighteousness. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that Sharalata, or simplicity, is the first qualification of a Vaishnava, whereas duplicity or cunning behavior is a great offense against the principles of devotional service. As one advances in Krishna consciousness, one must gradually become disgusted with material attachment and become more and more attached to the service of the Lord. If one is not factually detached from material activities, but still proclaims himself advanced in devotional service, he is cheating. So Vatsāsura and Bakāsura represent anarthas, and when they are in our hearts, when we contemplate these pastimes, how Krishna killed them, Vatsāsura and Bakāsura in our heart are also attacked by Krishna. We need to meditate on these pastimes in detail. Who sent Vatsāsura and Bakāsura to kill Krishna? Kamsa did, who is the representative of materialism. And it is not just that we analyze the pastimes, but by chanting the holy name and hearing Krishna's pastimes, we invite Krishna into our hearts. We may not have enough strength to overcome our anarthas, but Krishna does, and he can easily free us from them. Hearing his pastimes does not only eradicate anarthas, but also instills prema in the heart. Verses 55 to 59 are concluding concluding verses of this chapter. And in the purport to verse 56, Srila Prabhupada says that anyone who is against the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be killed life after life. We need to be sammata. We need to adjust our lives to the will of Krishna and allow him to control us. Anyway, he's controlling. But if we go against it, we will be killed life after life. Some are personally killed by Krishna. Some are killed by his form of time. No one escapes death. But some may become eligible to not accept another material body. Those who step on the path of bhakti and attain perfection in spiritual life. So we're coming to the end of the 11th chapter, and here I'd like to move from the Bhagavatam to the Krishna book, because Srila Prabhupada concludes the 11th chapter of the Krishna book with a really wonderful paragraph. He says, all the cowherd men, including Nanda Maharaj, used to talk of the wonderful activities of Lord Krishna and Balaram, and they were always so much absorbed in those talks that they forgot the threefold miseries of this material existence. This is the effect of Krishna consciousness. What was enjoyed 5,000 years ago by Nanda Maharaj can still be enjoyed by Krishna conscious persons simply by talking about the transcendental pastimes of Krishna and his associates. End of quote. Hearing and talking about Krishna's transcendental pastimes is the key to leaving behind all material suffering and awakening love of God in the footsteps of the Brijvasis. I thank you all for your kind attention, and again, the opportunity to absorb my thoughts in the sweet pastimes of Krishna in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And although there are so many discussions of Damodar Lila this month, please allow me to recommend a wonderful read. My Guru Maharaj's, Srila Shivaram Swami Maharaj's wonderful book, Sri Damodar Janani. In this book, he combined the Bhagavatam verses and our Acharya's commentaries on the topic into a fascinating read. As one of his god sisters said, this book will make your heart and mind dance, laugh, cry, and gasp in loving astonishment. I highly recommend it. I wish you a wonderful Kartik month. Hare Krishna.